let's go to the true Big Ten country, not Los Angeles.
Not Los Angeles, yeah.
Let's go up north because you're right. There is a huge, we would obviously Sharpie in CJ Stroud over the last couple of years as QB1 in the Big Ten, and no one would bat an eye. And even guys, below that, there's a huge changing of the guard in the next tier as well. You think Aiden O'Connell, Tanner Morgan at Minnesota. We thought Casey Thompson could have a really good year at Nebraska last year. That didn't necessarily materialize. Spencer Petras is gone from Iowa as well, but
or else he would have been number one. He was dynamic.
Like he had a shot to just rocket up the ranking. But all jokes aside, there's a big changing of the guard in the Big Ten, especially, and I think people are going to be really shocked at our list because again, we're trying to balance what we've seen on the field in college versus just raw talent. And there's a lot of brand new starters or guys that have not played a lot of football at the collegiate level in the Big Ten that are going to be leading these big programs. Thinking Kyle McCord at Ohio State, thinking Drew Allard at Penn State. Both of those guys make our top 5, but our number 1 is Taulia Tagovailoa, the Maryland quarterback. And Garrett, you are all aboard the Taulia hype train right now. So just hit us with the case. What is the case for him being QB1 in the Big Ten? Because I think people are swerving off the road when they hear that if they're driving in their car right now.
Yeah, please make sure that if you are not in a good place to drive and you are driving while listening to this podcast, you pull over to the side of the road. We want you to be safe more than anything else. But yes, we do put Taulia Tagovailoa from Maryland at the top spot. Look, here's really our reason why. You might be shocked to hear this, but over the last 2 seasons, he has passed for almost 7,000 yards and 44 touchdowns on 68% completions. Those numbers are kind of dumb. Those numbers are a little bit stupid. His big season was 2021, where he passed for 3,800 yards and 26 touchdowns on 69% completions, almost hitting that 70% mark. And then last year took a slight step back, 67%, 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, but he did deal with a little bit of a lower leg injury. He got carted off the field, later in the year. He was able to come back, but I think he missed the Northwestern game. He has the arm talent. Obviously, we know what his older brother was able to do at Alabama, succeeding now with the Miami Dolphins. He has the pedigree. He has that sort of whatever that talent is, those genes that run in that Tagovailoa family. He has that. But he has accomplished a lot at Maryland in his own right. He's been an effective passer. He keeps that offense humming. And oh, by the way, he has kept them in these tough games. They lost to Michigan by 7, and we all got the ESPN notification that he had the ball down 3 against Ohio State with like a minute left. We all got that notification from ESPN on our phone. Things didn't go very well at that point. He ended up getting, his left tackle got blown by a couple times, sack, fumble, touchdown, plus or I think it was a safety or something like that, and then the field goal or something like that. So it didn't end up looking very close. But he is a very talented quarterback who has kept them in these games. He got them to these points, a little bit of execution in a couple different places, and they may have won a couple of these big games. And you combine all this with the fact that they're getting Josh Gaddis to come in here as their offensive coordinator. He's been a 2-time Broyle Award winner at 2 different schools, Alabama and Michigan. They don't have the same talent level, but he will have this Maryland offense running the right direction. And I think that's why, at this point, I feel the most comfortable with Taulia Tagovailoa in this situation.
He's the most battle-tested quarterback, especially in the Eastern Division. I would 100% say that. And J.J. McCarthy might take umbrage to that, but I would put him as the most battle-tested and proven guy that can make plays on this side of the conference for sure. The question is going to be, can he take over a game and can he lead Maryland to a victory against one of the big 3? He has not done that to this point in his career. He's not beaten Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan, unless I'm just grossly forgetting something in his career. But that's the next step for him, right? And I think, they've recruited really well. They have a better roster around him. He's also he did this last year hobbled. He was hobbled for a good chunk of the season. You mentioned him getting carted off, but he was banged up, it seemed like, dang near every week last year and shaken up or his offensive line was causing him to run for his life. I'm thinking of the Penn State game, especially where he's just, running for his life behind the offensive line that really struggled against the more talented teams. And he's also doing it without an alpha wide receiver. You mentioned this off air, Garrett, but they have guys that got drafted in the NFL draft this year, but no one that really stepped up and said, I'm your go-to target. Throw it up to me when I don't even look open and we'll make something happen, right? Like he has not had that at Maryland for a consistent time period. So if somebody like that can step up and give him a little help, I feel even more confident. I think
right.
Three that we're talking today, this is obviously the least, locked in QB1. I wouldn't be surprised if we look back at this in December and we're kind of shaking our heads at ourselves saying, why did we get that hyped up? But also, he could definitely lead Maryland to, I'm pulling up their schedule right now. Is 9 or 10 win Maryland completely out of the question? Because I would put their QB depth up against almost anyone in the Big Ten. And of course, I would ranking them number 1.
I think 9 win is extremely on the table. I think 10 win is going to be tough just because that top 3 in the Big Ten East is going to be really tough to beat. I will say, I look back because I didn't even know this one. He did beat Penn State in 2020. Now, 2020, you're going to say,
Penn State was Penn State was really down that year. You're right. But yes, he did.
At the same, he did beat them a couple years ago. So just to make sure that we're, giving Maryland fans their due, yes, he did beat Penn State one time.
Thank you for fact checking.
And he did beat Michigan State last year. I know they were down too, but he did smash them up pretty good.
He'll beat Michigan State again this year because Michigan State is a dumpster fire.
He probably will. And yeah, especially no Payton Thorne. But he is a very talented quarterback. He could take them over the top. He's going to have to take over a game at some point. Yes. They have a pretty strong running game. Their receivers, nobody's really going to scare you. They did get a transfer in from West Virginia, so that might help. But I still think you're going to need a receiver to step up as his primary go-to guy in order to really take over a game. But it could work in reverse where he just finds a guy and there's, that guy's just fast enough to beat his corner in that matchup. And so he's able to take advantage of that. So you could see him go the other way and take over the game and put them over the top. I'm not sure if it's sort of a chicken or the egg situation for Maryland right now, but Taulia certainly has the talent to keep them in these games. And I wouldn't be shocked if they grabbed one of them this year.
They should start 5-0. They have Towson, Charlotte, Virginia, at Michigan State, Indiana.
Yeah.
5-0. They should be. If they're ready to take the next step,
we should be talking about highly ranked Maryland this year.
They'll and if they're 5-0, they'll probably be top 20 going into that showdown in Columbus in early October. But moving on to the rest of the conference, I'm going to go through these next 4 quickly because there's going to be a lot of debate, and this is going to be completely shuffled up. I can guarantee it by the end of the year. All 4 of these other guys absolutely have a claim to being number 1 because of their performance on the field. Mm-hmm. At number 2, we're going to go with Tanner Mordecai. Who transfers from SMU to Wisconsin. Drew Aller comes in at number 3 at Penn State, getting his shot to be the full-time starter. Kyle McCord at number 4, and J.J. McCarthy from Michigan rounding out the top 5. Teddy is screaming at his phone right now. I know.
Sorry, Teddy.
He's back-to-back Big Ten champion, and the case against J.J. McCarthy is he's always, as long as he's at Michigan, he is not going to be the star of that offense. It is going to be the running game. It's going to be the tight ends. They're going to be a run-first team. That's just what they're going to do.
That is true.
And J.J. McCarthy is going to make plays when he's asked to, and he's, has a dang good chance to win a 3rd straight division title this year. Has a very good chance to do that. But and I don't know when the last time a Michigan quarterback has done that or if that's ever happened, a 3rd straight conference title. But, just from pure talent and what we've seen on the court, I don't know how you can't put Tanner Mordecai number 2. He was just a machine at SMU, and he's going to be running a very, very – you might be thinking to yourself, he's going to be a plodding, slow offense. Nope. That's your granddad's Wisconsin. That's your dad's Wisconsin. They're running an up-tempo – very fast. They hired Phil Longo from North Carolina, who wants to run a fast up-tempo spread air raid system. And Tanner Mordecai is going to just take the keys to that job and run with it. I know they brought in other transfers. I know that it's a competition, quote unquote, but Tanner Mordecai is not going there for his last year of college eligibility when he has legit NFL aspirations.
Right.
To not be the starter, or at least given the first shot at that start. So I think he's going to be great at Wisconsin. And then you got the two unproven guys at the big boys in Drew Aller and Kyle McCord. And I think you could put either one of those, whatever order you want to put those guys in, I'm fine with it. Mm-hmm. We've seen more from Drew Aller at this point in their careers in actual pressure situations for me to be comfortable to put him just slightly ahead of Kyle McCord at this point.
Right. Look, on the McCarthy thing, you want to like him because he's played well, big stages. But last year, I looked this up just to make sure I had the game logs right. They won everything except for the TCU game, obviously. But in 6 of 13 games that he had meaningful playing time, he had a game where he went 4 for 4 for 100 yards. But there's a game where, if you're looking at just these games, 6 out of the 13 games, he failed to reach the 200-yard mark, which that's not necessarily a condemnation. He didn't throw the ball a whole lot. But again, I don't think we're going to sit here and say this guy's a rock star quarterback when he's not throwing the ball all that much. He didn't have to. He's got 2 of the best running backs in the country right behind it. If you're going to rank your running backs, and we're making a list on running backs in these conferences, you're probably putting 2 Michigan running backs in that top 5. They're extremely talented in the running game, and they don't have to. I also think it kind of hurts them that they don't necessarily have stud receivers that they can trust to go up and get the ball every time and just throw jump balls. They have good receivers, but I don't think they have that stud on the roster. And so, I mean, look, it could be different. We could be eating these words at the end of the season with a new revamped Michigan passing offense where they decided not to run the ball with their 2 talented running backs. I just don't think that that's who he is. Tanner Mordecai, he's going to tear it up. Obviously, Fickle going up to Wisconsin is going to be big for them. And I mean, if you look at his numbers, they're just gaudy over the last couple of seasons. He's thrown for, just every single yard that you can throw for at this point. Throw for, 7,000 yards the last couple seasons. And I mean, just lighting it up, lighting it on fire. He's thrown for 76 touchdowns and really 3 real seasons as a starting quarterback. If you combine the 2 where he kind of played at Oklahoma. And I mean, just a very talented guy. Obviously, because he hasn't done it against the highest level competition, we're not going to put him up there over Talia for number 1. And then, Drew Aller, Kyle McCord, good quarterbacks, just haven't seen them. We think that they're going to do a lot. We think that they're going to do a lot more in their offense than what JJ will do in his, just in terms of how those coaches are going to use their quarterbacks. But we just haven't seen them yet. We could very quickly, week 1 or week 2, be scratching out both of their names, putting them at the bottom of the list and saying, JJ, you're number 3, bud. No problem. But we haven't seen it. We don't know what they're going to look like. We think that we know that Aller is going to be really good. He looked pretty good in the mop-up duty and the little bits of time he had last year. And then Kyle McCord, look, he's an Ohio State quarterback. They throw the football. If he's good and if he can maintain that level of success Ohio State's used to, he'll be really high on this list by the end of the season. But we don't know what he can do.
Yeah, and neither one was asked to be in a lot of stressful situations over their career to this point. I'm impressed that Aller, in his first collegiate action, he saw action in 10 games last year. No. And he didn't throw an interception, which is really impressive to me. I think that's a really, really good sign for the Penn State faithful. Obviously, we're high on the Nittany Lions as a podcast this year. We've talked about that.
He did only throw 6 passes in those games, or 60 passes in all those games.
He did, yes.
Not a lot of passes, but he didn't throw a pick, which is impressive. So
yeah. And if you're looking for other guys to keep an eye on, I think a couple transfers throughout the rest of the conference. There's going to be, like I said, a ton of new starters throughout the entire league. But Luke Altmaier going from Ole Miss to Illinois is really intriguing to me to see what Brett Bielema can do with a really talented gunslinger back there. And then Jeff Sims. Listen, he didn't light the world on fire at Georgia Tech. He obviously, there's a reason that he was not asked to come back. But
not many do
at Georgia Tech. But, I think that he could be really interesting for Nebraska this year coming up. And, Nebraska just needs a spark. They need someone that's not going to turn the ball over and, could just be someone that they can cling to. I don't know that he's the long-term solution, but just keep an eye on him. He could make things a little less miserable for the Nebraska faithful this year.
Yeah, Matt Rule will turn that program around, but
yes,
probably not yet, and probably not with Jeff Sims.
Jeff Sims, if you're looking for an NFL correlation, could be the guy that they just call in to tank for this year. But
sure,
we'll see. I don't know.
Gracious him! How about